Mengumumkan ketibaan yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Rohana Yusof, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Hal Ehwal Pelajar Universiti Melaya selaku pengerusi majlis pada petang ini dan Profesor Dr. Cheng Hwee Ming. Hadirin dipersilakan duduk. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Yang berbahagia Datuk David Chua, Ahli Lembaga Pengarah Universiti Melaya. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Rohana Yusof, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Hal Ehwal Pelajar Universiti Melaya. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Ikram Shah Ismail, Pengarah Pusat Perubatan Universiti Melaya. Profesor Dr. Cheng Hwee Ming, Barisan Pengurusan Fakulti Perubatan Universiti Melaya dan hadirin yang dihormati sekalian. Selamat datang ke syarahan perdana oleh Profesor Dr. Cheng Hwee Ming yang bertajuk A Physiologic Journey. Hadirin yang dihormati, majlis dengan segala hormatnya mempersilakan yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Rohana Yusof untuk mempengerusikan syarahan perdana ini dan seterusnya memperkenalkan Profesor Dr. Cheng Hwee Ming Dengan segala hormatnya dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam satu Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Datuk David Chua, Ahli Lembaga Pengarah Universiti Malaya. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Ikram, Pengarah PPUM, timbalan-timbalan dekan, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekalian dan pelajar-pelajar yang saya sayangi sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh sekali lagi ya. It gives me such an honor today to introduce to you a person that I know for a long time, who's done a very good job in this faculty, and I think have raised the name of University Malaya. So let me introduce Professor Cheng Hwee Ming, this afternoon, and I think that most of the students here don't need much of introduction because they know him from first year, yeah? And he's been such a wonderful lecturer to everyone. So just let me introduce a little bit about Dr. Cheng here. Dr. Cheng's kampong is in Johor Bahru, yeah? And after his education in St. Joseph School, he crossed the causeway to do his pre-university at National Junior College, Singapore. In 1977, Dr. Cheng went to England and read for his joint honours in medical cell biology and biochemistry at the University of Liverpool. He continued and completed his PhD studies in Liverpool in immunology in 1983. His PhD research was on the immunology of human placenta allograft under Professor Peter Johnson. After a short postdoctoral stint at the Medical University of South Carolina, USA, Dr. Cheng joined the Department of Physiology, Faculty of Medicine, University of Malaya in 1985. His initial research activity in University of Malaya was on the physiologic natural autoantibodies to phospholipids and their possible relationship to autoimmunity in the anti-phospholipid syndrome. Subsequently, Dr. Cheng worked on antioxidant in human samples as well as in natural product, in particular palm oil vitamin E. Besides University Malaya, he has productive collaboration with scientists in Malaysian Palm Oil Board, SURIM, International Medical University and Malaysian Monash Medical School. Dr. Cheng is a member of the Planning Committee for the Society of Free Radical Research, Malaysia. In addition to supervising postgraduate research students, Dr. Cheng devotes considerable time to understanding how students learn physiology. Since 2000, he has written more than a dozen physiology learning books, which incorporate some of the common misconceptions in physiology among students. Dr. Cheng also initiated the Inter-Medical School Physiology Quiz, IMSPQ, in 2003, which is now in its 9th year. The Physiology Quiz is a global stimulus for physiology education and now draws student team from more than 40 medical schools coming from numerous countries to University Malaya each year. Dr. Cheng is a regular examiner in physiology at the Manipal Melaka Medical University in India, and he is a visiting professor at the Udayana Medical School in Indonesia. This afternoon, Dr. Cheng is going to share with us his physiologic journey, right? Okay, right. With that, Dr. Cheng, Professor Cheng, the floor is yours.
Yang berbahagia Datuk David Chua, Member of the Board of Directors, UM. Yang berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Rohana Yusof, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Student Affairs and Alumni. Yang berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Ikram Shah, Director of our UM Medical Center, UM. Ladies and gentlemen, families, my friends, my academic colleagues, and all you enthusiastic students who are gathered here this afternoon. Dr. Rohana was my former colleague in biochemistry. Thank you for agreeing to chair this, share my Syarahan Perdana. It is my pleasure to address you as Datuk this afternoon. I would like to also thank the ICR, in particular people like Azwa, Anwar, Puan Zulaika, and Thomas in the Dean's office for making all the arrangements for this Syarahan. Every detail was professionally done. I think they wanted me to look good. And with all the careful preparations, the logistics, the technicalities, the photo shoot, etc., etc., I mentioned to one of them that it felt like I was getting married again. Thank you very much. This is a long overdue inaugural lecture, and I thank Prof. Ruby, my head of department, for actively encouraging me to just do it. Thank you for taking this invitation seriously to a 1st of April event. And I had to write, every time I send out an invitation, this is no joke, this is for real. Yeah. In fact, one friend actually said, "Oh, Hwee Ming, don't pull a fast one. I know you are trying to." So he actually initially turned down my invitation. Yeah. I wish to thank my students, Ruth Cheng, Kai, Wei Han, and Ko Kang, who composed the music score, for providing the pre-Syarahan music. This is, I'm told, an inaugural feature of a Syarahan Perdana. You all have just made history. Those of you who came later, they played Tanah Pusaka, Sejahtera Malaysia, Salute the Amor, and You Raise Me Up. For those of you who missed their wonderful music, they will play Sejahtera Malaysia again at the end of my talk, just before Dr. Rohana takes the stage again. On a warm afternoon at 3 p.m. in the month of April 1958, a baby boy was born in Johor Bahru. His parents called his name Cheng Hwee Ming. And those of you who are not familiar with Chinese, this part here means the sun, and this part here means the moon. So together it means clear or bright. So clearly his proud parents were confident that this boy will have quite a bright future. The boy grew up happy and carefree in the then small town of Johor Bahru. His intellectual development from kindergarten to Form 5 progressed in St. Joseph's School. He passed his MCA exam in 1974 and was delighted to score a credit 6 for his Malay paper, and this with many hours of tuition. In 1975, the boy decided to cross the causeway to Singapore and completed his pre-university studies in National Junior College. Now that the boy has grown up and is leaving home, I will change to the first person to describe the major pathways of my academic journey. I chose University Liverpool for my higher education. Football was not a factor in the choice. I had 6 good years in Liverpool. During these university years, good friendships were made. This old photo shows 3 friends who have also joined academia. Dr. Phua Kia Kin in USM, Dr. Loh Hen Chin did maths in USM, and our own colleague, Professor Deborah Sim, who in Liverpool was my very meticulous biochemistry practical partner. Here is me. My BMI at that time was about 20. My first systematic induction into laboratory research was my 3 years of doctoral studies under Professor Peter Johnson, shown here. Peter, as I call him, taught me by his clear, insightful approaches to research. He was a prolific writer and impressed me with his ability to make sense and story of raw, seemingly random data. Above Peter's desk where I sometimes catch him resting his legs, are his guiding words, which he has also left with me. This is by the eminent immunologist J.R. Merrick, founder of one of the immunological journal. The secret of successful research is to ask nature simple questions one at a time. Peter has since retired as professor of immunology and now spends his time judging sailing competition and making his rounds at international sailing regatta. My PhD area was in reproductive immunology, and in particular, the focus was on the immunobiology of the human placenta. The placenta is basically foreign fetal tissue to the mother, and so the placenta ought to potentially activate a maternal rejection response. A successful pregnancy sustained by this foreign human placenta for a long gestation of 9 months is thus a physiological marvel and a mystery. Every child that is born is thus a miracle, including the speaker today. Thus, the maternal immunosurveillance is not quiescent. The elucidation of the mechanism by which the fetal-placental allograft avoids or escapes maternal rejection have therefore major implications for improving outcomes of human transplantation. In addition, placental research could provide insights into how to increase the effectiveness of treatment to battle cancer cells. Cancer cells proliferate and spread simply because malignant cells basically escape immunological attack in the patient. The human placenta is also a unique human research model, and limitations of extrapolating findings from animal studies to human physiology is not a question. Retrospectively, my doctoral placental studies was also an initial glimpse and a prologue to my eventual entry to immunophysiology, in particular the immunophysiology of natural autoantibodies. A few papers were published from my PhD work, and I was a proud owner of my very first author paper in the journal Placenta in 1985. However, my impression then, and still is, that the brain behind most major high-impact papers are often the last author rather than the first. In 1993, my status changed, not from single to married as in Facebook now, but from Mr. to Doctor. So this is a proud picture of me, Prof. Debbie, and Dr. Hen Chin. Yeah. This is an appropriate point to acknowledge my dear parents who have sacrificed much to enable not just me, but all 5 of the Cheng children to have a good education and a satisfying career. My father married a wonderful lady who was more educated than him. This was during the difficult war years. My mom had up to standard 5 education, almost UPSR. My father only finished standard 3. My father liked to tell the story that he was 3rd in class during his school days. And after a pause, he would smile and said, there were only 3 students in my class. It was time to return to Malaysia in 1985, where I joined and have remained in the physiology department for almost 50% of my life, along my physiologic journey. At my interview to join University Malaya, I first met the late Prof. Rahman, also the first Malaysian professor of physiology. Prof. Rahman, in his usual characteristic forthright manner, asked me, and I remember it very well, why do you want to come back to Malaysia? There is little research funds here. All you can get is an advanced calculator. Prof. Rahman was quite right. My first research grant was a significant small sum of 2,500 ringgit. Physiology. I had to practice this last night. In Chinese, it is 生理学. Yeah. So the word physiology is derived from root words that have the basic meaning of study or the logic of nature and of life. And this is also seen in the trademark T-shirt that is produced by the American Physiological Society. It is my pleasure this afternoon to proceed to take you along my physiologic journey. This will cover briefly 3 overlapping phases and focus areas of my academic life: natural antibodies, natural antioxidants, and teaching and the nature of student learning. With a precious research capital of 2,500 ringgit, my research was given a kickstart and boost by 2 individuals that I must acknowledge this afternoon: Prof. Yap Suk Fan and Prof. Niao Yong Fong, who are with us this afternoon. At that time, a new clinical autoimmune entity was being described called the anti-cardiolipin or the anti-phospholipid antibody syndrome. Prof. Yap and Prof. Niao collaborated generously and availed their laboratory resources, readily supplied patients' blood samples to a junior poor academic. The traditional concept and understanding of an autoantibody implies a self-destructive immune reaction to the person's own body tissues. In the social, political arena, we all recently see this phenomena in Egypt and the immediate neighboring countries. In the course of the work on anti-phospholipid antibodies, we serendipitously discovered, or rather uncovered, natural physiologic antibodies, in particular antibodies to phospholipids. Natural antibodies are now well established and comprise of 2 subpopulations: an overt population that is readily detected in normal human sera in immunoassay, and a unique covert population, also called hidden sometimes, or latent, or cryptic, or masked, because they are only detected in normal human serum when serum cofactors are first removed. For those younger generations in the audience, this is a typewriter. I remember clearly hitting away digitally at such a machine with my digits and managed to get a letter to the editor published giving my comments on some aspect of anti-phospholipid antibody quantitation. Cryptic anti-phospholipid antibody, I will shorten this to APL. This is a simplified diagram. A first paper on natural cryptic anti-phospholipid antibody was published with my former lab research assistant, Pua Yu Beng. Yu Beng and I providentially chanced on the observation that heat-labile serum cofactors were present that were masking populations of cryptic natural antibody in the blood of normal individuals. The natural APL antibody bound to the antigen in the immunoassay when the co-inhibitor, the labile co-inhibitor, was removed by a simple heating of normal human sera. The unmasked APL then were detected in the immunoassay using cardiolipin as the phospholipid antigen. I would like to say a little bit more about Yu Beng. Yu Beng went on to work in Singapore and was productive in other ways. He married Siu Kim, a wonderful wife and mother of 4 sons. Siu Kim only had 2 pregnancies. As Yu Beng productively and collaboratively with Siu Kim managed to have triplets. Sadly, Yu Beng succumbed to cancer last year. So I'm very grateful that Siu Kim and the 4 boys have taken the time to travel out from Singapore to be here this afternoon with us. This is Yu Beng's family. The 4 boys are shown here. Wei the eldest, and the triplets in their birth order. Wei Ke, Wei Den, and Wei Yan. I think they're sitting together in the same row. Thank you, Siu Kim, for coming with the boys. And Yu Beng's brother is also here, Yu Lai. Thank you for coming. You all lost a good man. The investigation of APL were very stimulating, and we were able to propose subsequently a novel immune concept regarding natural cryptic APL. So the concept is that in vitro detection of antiphospholipid autoantibodies may not necessarily reflect a hyperimmune response, but the detectable APL could also be due to the unmasked APL as a result of reduction in plasma co-inhibitors of APL. Thus, the APL are thus revealed, unmasked, uninhibited, and thus able to bind antigens. So some populations of APL are cryptic APL. The new idea was well received and published in a number of significant journals. In this summary of my journey, I wish next to introduce two individuals that have helped prosper my research on natural APL. They are Dr. Lawrence Cheng Lee and Professor Hans Lutz. I first met Larry when we were sitting together in a bus on the way to a lake resort in Italy for the 4th anti-phospholipid antibody workshop. I was still a poor government servant, and young enough to have my workshop registration fee waived. I had not confirmed any hotel room yet for this meeting, hoping to seek out perhaps a YMCA or some 2-star lodging. Larry somehow discerned my poverty and said, Ming, I have a big double room at the Lake Resort Hotel. Why don't you come and share my room? So this was the beginning of a good academic friendship. You notice a durian here. Yeah. There are no durians in New Zealand. Yeah. When Larry visited me in Kuala Lumpur, Larry impressed me with his liking for durians. Larry's own interest was in the association of autoimmune APL with a higher incidence of spontaneous abortion. Larry's laboratory regularly purifies a major cofactor of APL called beta-2 glycoprotein I, or also known as apolipoprotein H. And he generously sent me beta-2 GPI for my own studies on natural APL. I remember another initial impression of Larry as we unpacked at the lovely hotel room in Italy. Larry took out a framed photo of his wife, Carol, and proudly placed it by his bedside. Wow, this man loves his wife. This is Larry's family with Carol and his 2 daughters, Lydia and Katie. Here I would also like to proudly present my dear wife, my constant companion in my physiologic journey. Liverpool University brought our lives together. This is at the wedding in 1986, and this is at the very recent annual award event of 6 College. It is good for me to also acknowledge Gate Cheng's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Tan Boon Lin. Both of them were educators. Father taught history and the mother taught geography. So obviously you notice that I married into a higher strata society. They decided with Gate Cheng on Liverpool, and Gate Cheng had to make the difficult decision to turn down a place here in UM in medicine, where most of her friends were entering at that time. I wish to also mention a dear auntie, Miss Tan Siu Tuan, who since being absorbed into the Tan family in 1986, Akko as I call her, each year never failed to send a carefully chosen birthday card with my love for music in mind. I'm glad that Akko did not learn how to send internet greeting cards. An academic milestone in my research in natural APL was the invitation to write a summary of our results in a book entitled Immunophysiology of Antiphospholipid Antibodies. This USA-based publisher, RG Lens, is unique in hunting down novel ideas and sends each author, upon the release of the book, a bottle of champagne. My thanks to one of my former master student, Aini, here, who typed and retyped most of the book that you've just seen. Aini now teaches in one of the education arms of HELP. During the 80s and early 90s, internet access was not available in physiology. So keeping up with research literature meant going regularly to the library, and some of you may remember this, looking up current contents, and then writing for reprint requests. Prof. Han Lutz, seen here, was one of the regular who asked for my reprints. I actually missed those days, as one of the bonus of receiving a reprint request was also the beautiful stamp that came with the request. This one from Mexico, it says here, Estimado, Dr. Cheng. Prof. Hans Lutz in 2007 organized the very first international workshop on natural antibodies in Switzerland. I was honored to be the only Asian among the invited speakers at this inaugural natural antibody meeting. The paper was presented at the meeting and subsequently published in autoimmunity reviews. This meeting was sponsored by Behring, that produces a lot of your intravenous immunoglobulin. And these are basically pooled natural antibodies from hundreds or thousands of normal individuals. I also met and had the privilege to meet for the first time two giants and two pioneers of natural antibody immunobiology. This one shows Professor Stratis Aramias, a long association with the Pasteur Institute in Paris, and Professor Irone Cohen in Israel. Some of you will know her. Prof. Sam Chung Puk, a good friend and a former colleague, now with her husband, Prof. Ko Chong Lek, in Singapore. Most of my natural antibody work were done using available facilities in her laboratory. Sam's laboratory, under Prof. Umapati Prasad, former head of ENT, was the reference laboratory for blood screening for antibody to the Epstein-Barr virus, which has a strong association with nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Sam and I co-supervised several master students. Several have gone on to establish their niche and corners in research and academia. These are some of the students. Dr. Lina did a PhD in Cambridge. Madeline is now with NIH. And Aini, I just mentioned, who helped write my book. And so there's several individuals are mentioned here. Let me just show you a few of them in orange and what they are doing now. Shabana Afaki was an attractive foreign student who came to Sam and I. She's now with the Department of Physiology and Experimental Medicine at the 6th Children's Hospital in Canada. Shabana worked on natural antibodies to a protein component of high-density lipoprotein, HDL, also called ApoE, and also to adrenal hormones. Just recently, Shabana wrote to say, Dr. Cheng, we are very busy now. We are hoping to submit a paper to Nature. Wow, the disciple is now greater than a master. When she was with us, I remember when she was with us, Shabana initially had some problems digesting her results and writing. I remember her coming to my office one day and said, Dr. Cheng, I had a dream last night and everything just came together. Now I know what to write. Do you believe in dreams? Annie Matthew, now teaching in Taylor's College, did studies on antibodies to a few EBV antigens and is now teaching at the, I think it's the A-levels program in Taylor's. Fong Yok Teng here, now with the Help Academy, did experiments on what is known as the linear epitopes, linear antigenic epitopes of EBV. And Yok Teng has now gone on into teaching and is seen here with the students in the Help Academy. Siu Chu was our first PhD student that Sam and I co-supervised. Siu Chu did her project in allergy with special interest on the common house dust mites. Siu Chu also has begun her own physiologic journey and just last year was appointed a lecturer in physiology at the Masa Medical School. I always remember Siu Chu as she organized and typed all my CV when I was applying for my professorship. Siu Chu is a very unassuming person and did not even send me her photo for this presentation. So this is the best I could find of her, carrying an umbrella. This is an interesting slide. While preparing for this Syarahan and with Miss Google as my secretary, I was pleasantly surprised and stunned to discover two missing references with me as co-author in the early 80s. Either Dr. McLaughlin and Dr. Emerson in America forgot or did not think it was important to tell me then. Notice that they also got my initial wrong. Let me now move on to my entry into the world of antioxidants and free radical research. Antioxidants can be found in vivo in the human body, and in vitro laboratory tests can be used to measure antioxidant activity in both plant and natural products and in human samples like blood and tissues. Our initial foray into antioxidant work was triggered with much help given by Professor Iris Benzi from the Hong Kong Polytechnic, who formulated the in vitro ferric reducing antioxidant power test. Lina, as you've seen earlier, helped to optimize this first antioxidant assay in our laboratory. Subsequently, we were able to establish a battery of antioxidant assays, including TAC, DPPH, galvinoxyl, ORAC, and the linolenic acid assay. These antioxidant tests were used in vitro screening of plant extracts as well as total antioxidant status in human blood samples. In 1997, the national economic situation was bad. It was my sabbatical year, and the university decided to allow sabbaticals to be done only locally. This appeared to be a setback, a roadblock. I had to make a slight detour and decided on a sabbatical in PORIM, Palm Oil Research Institute, then, now Malaysian Palm Oil Board. If you believe in divine providence, as I do, retrospectively, these were some of the most fruitful years. My research shifted to nutrition, food antioxidants, in particular palm oil, vitamin E. Our palm oil is unique in containing perhaps the highest concentration of tocotrienols. And you have alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Okay. Compared to other plant products, 3 PhD students and 2 master students completed their thesis in these related areas, with 3 more ongoing PhD. Let me highlight some individuals that have been part of this segment of my journey.